how is that aligned with the mission, vision, theory of action. Once that request is submitted, we meet with the departments, we meet with the principal, we meet with the associate director of finance, the director of finance, and we look at those requests. Okay. We also look at the initiative that we are implementing, and we do a cost analysis and a SWOT analysis. High impact, high cost, low impact, low cost, high impact, high cost. So we decide if this is something that we need to continue, if this is something that we need to put on the parking lot, if this is something that we need to prioritize, if this is something that we need to readjust. In this process of conversation with schools and with department, we gather a lot of data. We gather a lot of data about enrollment. We gather a lot of data about the increase in special ed. We gather a lot of data about ELA. We gather a lot of data about increase in fixed costs. We look at projection in order to do this. We also review the state and federal grants and over the years. Again, going back to the collective effort, this cannot be done by one person only. So let me just give you a perfect example that Mr. Neil Weathers, Director of Accountability and Research, and he's crucial in the budget development because we rely on him to get us a lot of data to support our position or to decide not to go with that position. So this is the planning development process, and we start this in the month of November. I'm not going to read this chart to you. It's in your packet, and you can see it. But I think it's important to look at Windham Public School and to look at Connecticut. Two data points here that are so important to us is the data point at ELA and special ed. If you take a look, the district, Windham Public School, has the highest percentage of ELA learners and special ed learners, higher than the state, much higher than the state. I think that's something that we really need to take a look at. I think it's something that we really need to take a look at. Our need, we have the highest percentage of ELL, a high percent, higher than the state of Connecticut. And also if you take a look at our free and reduced lunch, we are 100% eligible for free and reduced lunch in the Windham Public School. So I'm not going to go through all the other point of data, enrollment, Latino, Asian, etc. But these 2 points of data are very, very important for you to take a look at. The context for our budget, I'm going back to this because this is very important. The context of our budget are grounded in our tool for success, our mission, our vision, our theory of action, and our goals. Our mission said that we have to provide equitable education to all students. Our vision is that all students will graduate college and career ready. And we have a theory of action that said if we do this, if we provide this support to teachers, and we have 5 goals, a goal that deals with student achievement, building staff capacity, community engagement, efficiency of operation, and also cultural competency. So we make a decision, for example, to institute something next year to come, something about maybe not using this laptop versus the other laptop. We look, is that under efficiency? So looking at the budget, the journey of educating kids is very dynamic and very complex. So we look at all our goals, we look at every decision that we make, where does it fit in one of these buckets of success? Indicator of success. We measure our successes, and we measure our successes many ways. And we measure our successes by many factors and by many indicators. We measure our success by numbers, but we also measure our success in a qualitative way, by the result and the effort that changes behavior. So let's start by measuring our success by the numbers. And if you take a look at the numbers, starting in 2014-15 and 2017-18, as you can see, the district graduation rate, and the district graduation rate is different than the high school rate, because the district does include students that are placed out of district. So the high school graduation rate is the kids that we have physically here in this building. The district graduation rate are students that are placed out of district. But as you can see, the numbers are improving, particularly in the high school graduation, where we have gone from 81 to 86% in the graduation rate of the high school. The district also has increased from 80 to 84. Enrollment in EC dual enrollment classes, these are classes that are college-bearing courses. We have gone from 293 classes to 339 seat enrolled, meaning students enroll in taking these courses. When we look at offering AP dual enrollment, we also increased by small number. We also increased those number by 1. When we look at students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, we have gone tremendously over 150%, from 58 students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade to 145. Something that we work very hard and is a very challenge for us is chronic absenteeism. We have been able to decrease chronic absenteeism over the year, and this is a very, very challenging task for the district. Our percentage of students meeting level 3 and 4 in SBAC also has increased over the year. We have gone from 27 to 34 in ELA, and in math from 19 to 29. So we're seeing an increase of 6.4 and 9.3. Still much more work to go, a long way to go, but the numbers are moving in the right direction, and that's what is important to us. Still a lot way to go. So we measure by the numbers, but we also measure other things that are important to us. As we say, education is a very complex journey. And so here we want to share with you other things that are not measured by the numbers, but that are influenced by the work that we do on a daily basis, that are influenced by the initiative that we put in place, and that are influenced by the decision that we make on a daily basis. To share with you, the ECHO program received Program of Distinction nationally. 40 programs in the country were selected, and Windham Public School were selected. And this program was selected based on the curriculum and based on the experiences that it provides students college and career ready. As you can see there's the letter that we received as District of Distinction for the college and career program that we received last year. Two other areas that are very important to us in order to develop the students, all students to be successful in the 21st century, is instructional technology. And the other area is language learning. We have gone to a one-to-one Chromebook in 6th and 7th, 9th and 5th grade, and the purpose of this is to help our students to be more innovative in the classroom, to learn differently in the classroom, and to be knowledgeable of how they can use instructional technology to enhance their own learning. Another area is language learning. The research is very clear and very solid about language learning. Years ago, we talked only about the academic benefits of language learning and the cultural benefits of language learning and the economic benefit of language learning. But the research about language learning is very solid about the cognitive benefits also of language learning. We're very proud to say that not only we have a compañeros program in Windham Public School, but 3 other schools, Natchog, Sweeney, and Windham Center also have, we're in the 2nd year of a one-way dual program, and every year we increase 1 more grade. We believe in giving every student what they need to be successful. So it's not only students that are at the lower level of the spectrum, all students are philosophy, all students should be able to meet. So we have a system here in Windham Public School called the multi-tier support, the WinBlock, where students are either being accelerated or receiving what they need in order to be successful in the classroom. What will we do without our parents? We cannot be successful without our parents. Parent University have gone from being a 1 event a year to an event now that has workshop on a monthly basis for parents across the school district. And again, what will we do without our parents? Students are not the only one involved in the innovation of technology. Students, teachers are also involved in the innovation of technology. Recently, our teachers at the elementary level receive laptops all elementary teachers, 125 teachers receive laptops in their classroom to help them with their teaching, to help them provide better instruction to their students, to help them with their assessment, and also to help them be more efficient and more organized with their presentation. On one side, we're working with teachers on instruction. On the other side, the work of instruction continue with staff. We also build the capacity of staff. And you can see here the veteran teacher, Mr. Moser, working with a math specialist in a PLC, learning how to present some new mathematical concepts. We're building the capacity of our teachers. Social and emotional. We have students that come to us with lots of trauma, lots of issues. And although academics is very important for us, and we spend a lot of time and effort in academics, we also spend some time in the social and emotional of students. How do we help them in order to be successful? Internship for our students, providing our students with different experiences, the opportunity to apply what they have learned in the real world situation. We cannot forget the art and music opportunity, one that is very dear to my heart, art and music. I don't know what a school district would be without art and music. I'm not an artist or a musician, but we cannot live without those two. We're very proud to say that at the elementary school, we started instrumental music in 2 schools, Sweeney and Natchog, where kids don't have the opportunity to play instrument. With the partnership of Save the Music Foundation, we will be increasing these on a yearly basis. And what about art? Here we have our students from Natchog that on a yearly basis develop a presentation and present their art painting at the gallery, at the Carey Gallery in the local community. I present this to you to say education is a very complex process. Educating our kids is not only about academics. It has so many different components. I mentioned to you more than 8 or 9 aspects that are involved in educating our students, from building the capacity of teacher, from technology, from internship, from career readiness. And in addition to that, we have the numbers of the SPAC, the numbers of reading, the numbers of ECE, the number of college courses. So, regardless of the challenges that we have, I think it's important to know that we're moving in the right direction, numbers are moving in the right direction, and the opportunity that we're providing teachers and students are moving in the right direction. Nevertheless, there are some challenges that we will continue to meet from a national level, from a state level, and from a local level. The first one is the reduced educational investment over years. Over the years, the ECS has not increased in the state of Connecticut. Well, after today, I think that may change after the governor presentation today, but over the years, the increase in investment in education has not increased. The increase of the cost of special education and ELL has increased. The number of students have increased, and the students have increased. The decrease in federal funds, the decrease in fixed costs, transportation have increased, benefits has increased, utilities have increased, and I mentioned transportation. So those are challenges that we have no control. Benefit, transportation, cost of special ed, cost of ELL. But regardless of that, we have budget priorities. And our budget priorities for this year, this budget, is responding to our mission, our vision, our theory of action, and our goals. Our 7 budget priorities that I will mention tonight are very aligned with those tools for success. We want to increase the growth and percentage of students meeting reading and math proficiency. The numbers are moving in the right direction, but we have a long way to go. Our mission and our goal is how we continue to increase the proficiency of our students and the SBAC, and for that, they need resources and tools and building teacher capacity to do that. Increase the opportunity for college and career readiness. The way we educate high school students have changed. We want students to go to college, we want them to be college ready, we want them to be career ready. And that means that different opportunities need to be provided to them in the school regarding courses, regarding experiences, regarding internships. Social and emotional support for our students. The students that are coming to us, the needs that they're bringing, the trauma that they're needing, it is our responsibility to be able to support them in this area. In order for them to be successful in the classroom and respond academically, we do need to address their social and emotional. Technology and innovation in the classroom. You know, technology, the word technology will be eliminated pretty soon, and there will be another word to replace technology. And we're talking about innovation. Pretty soon Chromebooks will be deleted, and there will be something else replacing Chromebooks. So we have to continue with that mindset that how do we increase and advance with technology on a regular basis. Decrease chronic absenteeism, a big one for us, challenging one for us, lots of resources that are needed in order to decrease chronic absenteeism. Also, alternative education, we do have to meet the needs of all students, so we do have to meet the needs of students that are not successful in the traditional high school setting. We do have to find a place, we do have to find the support, we do have to find the curriculum that they need in order for them to be successful. And we'll continue to engage our parents in the education process. What will we be without our parents? I just want to share with you the requests over time for the budget. And although you can see that we have had an increase in our budget requests, and some years we have a 3.6 and a 3%, the majority of time we have a 1, a 1.4, a 1.3 in increase in the budget. But I think this slide does not tell the story. I think if you look at this slide tells the story. This slide tells the story of what was requested and what was adopted or what was provided to the school. So if you take a look in 2014, we proposed a $44 million budget, we received a $43 million budget. In 2015, we proposed a $4.44 million, we received a 45. That was a very good year for us. In 2016, we proposed a $47 million budget, we received a $45 million budget. In 17, we proposed a 47.47, we received a 47.36, very close. In 2018-19, we proposed a 49, we received a 47. So as you can see, the adopted budget has not kept up with the requests of the school district, and that has an impact over years. But I think, although this chart is very important and very visible, I think if you look at this, the blue chart, the blue arrow, the blue line, is the school district request. And the red arrow is what has been given to the school district. So as you can see here, there's a gap between the request from the school district and what have been given. There's this year that we're very close there, but as you can see, here is a gap, and here is another gap, based on what is requested to meet the needs of the school district and what have been adopted or provided to the school district. So how do we spend our money? Where does the money, how is the budget funded? Three major sources of funding: local, state, and federal. As you can see, the local funding is 38%. This is less than what was given last year. The state of Connecticut funding is 39.6%. So the state is a little bit higher than the local funding, and state and federal grant is 22%. So here, these are the sources where we get our money from the school. How is the budget spent? 81% of our budget goes to school. 81% of our budget goes to school. Salaries, so utilities, supplies, material, transportation, etc. And 18.9% is in central services, such as utility, transportation would be in the 18? The 18.9?
Yes.
How is the budget spent? How do we spend this budget? So a little more specifically, about 80% of our budget goes to staffing. They didn't put the numbers here. So this big, they didn't put the numbers here. Mine has it. Who has mine open? Rita, you have mine. No, let's read the numbers there for me, because I don't put it here. So this big one here is salaries.
54.
54%. And this one here is benefits. 18. So between salaries and benefits, we have in about 80% goes to salary. What is this one over here, Rita?
72.
I know, 72%. Thank you, Mr. Matt. What about this one, Rita, here?
8%.
8%, and that's what?
That's everything other than the big ones that we've.
Okay, and then here is transportation. How much is transportation?
Transportation, 6%.
6%, and which one is 18%?
That's the benefits.
That was the benefit piece. The other big one was tuition is 10%.
Tuition is 10%.
Right.
I don't know what happened here because in mine it came out. I don't know why it didn't come out here. Okay. But this is how we spend our budget. So we spend it in salary, we spend it in benefit, we spend it in transportation, we spend it in tuition. This is how we spend our budgets. This tells you exactly what goes to school per school. I'm not going to read that, but this tells you exactly what goes to school, what goes to the elementary school, what goes to Barrows, what goes to each school. And so we have major cost drivers in the budget. Major cost drivers that we don't have any control. One being the contractual obligation. Contractual obligation are major cost drivers. These are due to contractual obligation with the different bargaining units in the district. We also have benefits that include your medical benefits. Staffing requests, that number is not correct. New staffing request is $680,954. New staffing request is $680,954, and that includes the new request from the middle schools. Transportation, we have an increase there of 105,000. Tuition, special ed tuition, and regular tuition. Camino Alto is included in that. Dr. Solucci is included in that. And also we have an increase in tuition in technology. And last year we did not put any money in the budget for math materials and supply. Last year we spent a lot in reading. This year we're putting some monies in the budget for textbooks and materials and supplies in the area of mathematics. Some challenges for this district budget, in addition to the state and local and national, will continue to be the contractual obligation, the benefit, transportation, and tuition. Those are our major cost driver, and those are our challenges. Continue again, here are the health benefits that continue to be, and we break it down there, so you have health insurance, life insurance, and FICA, et cetera, et cetera. Major is the benefit. So what are the staffing requests? So now let's go to what are the staffing requests, what the school requested. So we have 2 technology teachers requested, 1 reading interventionist, 2 bilingual teacher, a dean of student, a social worker, and a part-time German teacher. And that request comes up to $680,954. So here we have the request, here we have all the needs, we have the context of the budget. So in the process of developing this budget, so we also have conversation about how do we look at efficiency, how do we realign what we're doing, how do we reconfigure what we're doing. I said to you before that we look at initiatives that we're doing, and we said high impact, high cost, low cost, high impact, low cost, no impact, or high cost, low impact. So all of that influence how we're making the decision to come up with some efficiency of saving. So we went to reconfigure district-wide and certified position in the district. District-wide, this will not affect classroom teachers, meaning no teacher from the classroom is going to lose their position per se. No, not per se. No one from the classroom will lose their position. We're going to reconfigure some position district-wide. We also went to reconfigure secretarial services in the district with the use of technology, with the use of new system that we're putting in place, with the use of streamlining protocols and procedures, and with retirement, attrition, we think we could have some saving in that area. We want to look at standardized work schedule. What does this mean? It doesn't mean that there will not be no overtime. What it means is that somebody have a schedule to be the student from 8 to 4, then they will be the student from 8 to 4. Students are gone at 4 o'clock. There's no need for the person to be till 5 o'clock in the school. Chromos timekeeping, very important. At this time, every timesheet is done in this district manually. Every timesheet that we have is done manually. It is a very archaic system. It takes forever. I don't know anyone who's doing timesheet manually right now in the country. Very archaic system, so we're going to a system where we can have our timesheet done through a more computerized system. And transitioning to full-day pre-K, we discussed this with Aliki, how we can meet the needs of our students, and instead of having half-day pre-K, we're going to full-day pre-K. This will not affect students, meaning we have 18 students that will need to be placed, but because the screening and the application is a universal application system, these students will be able to be placed in the community-based programs. So everyone will be placed. So here are our budget codes. Those to give another picture, to summarize, our contractual obligation is an increase to 3% based on their contract. Employees benefit is an increase of 4.8. New staffing requests, 680,954. Transportation, tuition, technology, and math curriculum materials that were not in our budget for last year. So this request for the general fund is a request of $49,951,110. That is an increase of 4.1 over the 2018-19 budget. I'm open to any questions at this time from the board. I do want to thank my entire team and the members that are not here. As I said before, the budget cannot be done by one person. The budget is a collective effort, and I'm very proud of the work that every single one has done. Even today, I have my HR director and my assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and Rita looking at budget numbers, looking at concerns that we have. This is a very collective process. From every single one meeting with their departments to go over initiative, to go over costs, and then putting it all together. So I want to thank all of them, and I want to thank all the principals. From Margaret, talking to people out there, I'm very proud of this collective effort. So I'm open to any question, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the staff who put together all this information. We did receive on Friday, the board did receive on Friday the budget book that we have before us. after our meeting last Wednesday, just to be clear about what should be sent out, there was a question about what percent increase to, what percent to put into the budget book. This is just a presentation. This is not the request that we are necessarily putting forward to the Board of Finance and then through the Board of Finance to the taxpayers. But because we were talking last week about a little over a 3% increase, and then we had the additional requests that were made by the School Governance Council that came before us. I just made the suggestion, let's just put that budget together and then we'll go from there in the discussion. So I don't want us to get caught up on the 4.1% number. I think we should talk about the questions and concerns and suggestions that people have here tonight. We're not going to finalize anything tonight. And I'll open it up with Mike.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. I do want to establish a kind of process. I do want to establish a kind of process to get the question, because if we don't have the answer to your question tonight, we do want to go back and get that answer later. So I don't know if somebody from my team can make sure that we get the questions. Can somebody from my team take the questions? And I also want to make sure that Mrs. Rita Parsiak and Mr. Johnson will be able to join me in answering any question.
Do they want to come to the table?
I don't know.
So they're at Mike's?
Want to come to the table?
Actually, I've got stuff.
Okay.
In
Okay.
case
Is there
anybody
Mike?
has any specifics?
Yeah, okay. And Dr. Garcia, are you going to sit down?
I think I will move around.
You're going to move around? Okay.
And so who will take the questions?
Okay, she's going to be like a talk show host.
Okay, you want to type them?
Okay. So, Mike, you had your hand up first.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not as much a question, but my concern is going through the budget and looking at certain things. I'm still seeing cuts in the classrooms. I'm not seeing any cuts anywhere else and I'm also still not seeing a Barrows pre-K or any effort to move towards that.
Okay, so question, let's start with the Barrows pre-K because I think it's the most important pre-K question. The pre-K program is not a mandatory program. So if the district wants to have a Barrows pre-K, the district can have it and they'll have to put it in the budget. The issue is that it cannot be interdisciplinary, inter-district pre-K because other districts will have to pay for that. Because pre-K is not universal, there's other districts do not want to pay to come to a pre-K in the school district. So it can happen, but that's a decision that the board will have to make to put it in this budget.
My comeback to that would be the board already made the decision to put it in. The taxpayers paid for it, and we have a school sitting there that is supposed to have it.
Okay, what I mean by that is that pre-K is a very expensive program. We could put it in the budget if we want. By the way, the classrooms are available and they're furnished with everything. If we want to have that, I think it's a very good idea to have a STEM pre-K, and I agree with you. But we'll have to put that in the budget. In years past, we did not put it in the budget. And the other thing, we'll have to work with the state about how can we work with them when other schools are not willing to send their pre-K students because pre-K is not universal. And I don't have that question, the answer to that question, although that came up before, about 2 years ago. So that's question number one. Question number two is there's not a cut to any classroom teacher in this budget. That one, absolutely.
Does that include paras and?
They are for attrition, I think 2 paras and 2 tutors, but there's no cut to classroom teacher in this budget. So every classroom teacher that is in a classroom will stay in a classroom. And so if there are new classrooms that are open, we'll have to have more teachers. And that's your second question. And then the third question is, this budget does not have an increase in any administrative position either. But there are administrative central office support that are cut in this budget.
Isn't there one administrative position increase in the middle school?
There is an administrative increase for the middle school. So what is a central office? But there is,
in central office.
But there is one in the middle school. Right.
We added another.
You need to speak into a mic if you're going to talk, Christian. I'm sorry. You have to.
We added the position that the SGC requested.
That's the position that we added to the middle school.
Right. Yes. Is there anybody else who has any questions? Mark?
Before I get in, even into the meat of the budget, I have questions or concerns about some of these budget scenarios. I'm looking at standardized work hours and efficiency of chronos. We're projecting a $350,000 savings in those two. I mean, I find it hard to believe that rounding up to the 15 minutes is going to save me $150,000 for standardized work. I don't know where we got those numbers from. They seem rather very high to me.
Okay. So I'm not the expert in Chromos. I'm going to ask Mr. Rita Parchik, and then I will support him in this. What we mean by standardized working hours, Mr. Doyle, if that is somebody's assigned to a student from 7:30 to 4 o'clock, then they will be with the student from 7:30.
I understand the concept. I don't understand $200,000 worth of savings.
Okay.
That's what I don't
We
understand.
don't come up with these numbers lately.
Rita, could you answer the question?
Rita,
Rita, you go ahead. You know the answer.
First of all, the paras, I did a study on the 15 minutes, and if we saved 15 minutes and standardizing the hours, right now they're all over the place. They're 7.75, 7.5, 7.25, 8. And if we standardize the hours, I did a study with an average rate of pairs, and it did come up to $250,000 savings. We have over 150 in the district. So that was your first question, correct? Kronos, we have 600 timesheet employees. So it was Kronos that came to us and said we were going to save over this. We're being very conservative in our estimate of 150,000.
Part of what they say is that there's a lot of gaming going on with timesheets. That's eliminated once we go to the biometric system. You come in when you come in, and you go out when you go out, not when you say when you come in and when you say when you go out. So that's the savings that Kronos pointed out. Wherever they implement the system, you get savings. That was just at the low end of the spectrum.
I think Geraldine wanted to add to Geraldine.
I just wanted to add one other thing. Yeah. There's also a cost savings with Kronos with the labor between human resources and payroll. In the hours that are spent processing those, it would all be electronic for people's leaves and things like that.
So I want to point out that this process took months. Number one, we start looking at a study. We look at other school district in the state. We look at other school district in other state. So it was not a decision that was made us overnight. We had people dedicated like Rita to look at the study. We had people like Geraldine looking at the impact in HR in order for us to make that decision. And then, so we did our research, we did our homework to come up to making that decision. Number one, does this mean that there will be no overtime? Absolutely not. Does not mean that. But what it means is that the overtime will be more aligned with the needs of the students.
Mark, do you have another question?
Yeah, so we have a high degree of confidence in the Kronos. Basically, they're going to be checking in electronically, is my understanding.
Correct. And can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
You know, right now they're chasing down the paper timesheets. When somebody forgets to hand in a timesheet, it could take one school 2 days to get all their timesheets from their paras. With Kronos, it will send an email if they don't log in every single day. So the savings in that alone, you know, for one school could be 2 full days.
Okay.
I believe in Mr. Doyle. Not having paper timesheet is really what it puts us in the 21st century.
Yeah. The other concern I have over these scenarios is that I'm very concerned about reducing the 3 tutors and reducing the 3 paras, as well as the secretaries. I've heard and I've seen the reaction when we reduce paras, especially when we're no longer using building subs and we're using tutors to take their place.
So
to me, this is where the classroom is with those people. It concerns me that we make those savings in those positions.
So let me address those positions of the 2 paras or tutors are vacancies that are existed at the mid-year. So they are current vacancies, meaning that there's no one in those positions. And those decisions are also made talking with the principals in those buildings. Some of them have different requests. Some of them think that they could do it differently. But those positions are currently vacant in those buildings.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, Mark, if it's okay with you? So when you say that, Dr. Garcia, does that mean that they may have been vacant mid-year, but the administration in that building and also with the input of the school governance councils, have they all said, well, we really don't need that position?
So let me go back to two things. Everything is in context. So there may be a school that have a vacancy that may need it. There may be a school, for example, I think the middle school have an ISS vacancy. That's one that is totally needed. So everything is not one size fits all. Is in context. That's why you need to have a conversation with individual schools. The principal develop their budget. The responsibility of the principal is to present the budget to the HGC. So the principal develop their budget, and the responsibility of the HGC, according to the law, they don't have to approve the budget, but the principal has the responsibility to present it to the HGC and to explain to the HGC why they made the decision that they made.
So if it's reflected here as not being filled through attrition or whatever, that was agreed to by the people who are in those buildings.
The building people. The building people.
Right.
I don't say the HGC because the responsibility of the HGC is not to approve the budget, but the prison principal.
They weigh in on it, though.
They weigh in on it, sure. And the other thing is that some vacancies do need to be filled. An ISS position at the middle school has to be filled. So it has to be, everything has to be in context.
Mark?
Yeah,
Back to
I
you.
guess the final question for the moment would be, the alternative education, the support students attending STEPS, $250,000 additional request. Is that, and I don't expect you to have the full answer tonight, but that in addition to the $400,000 or $500,000, are we closing the school? What's that? I don't see a reduction in the administrative staff from that school or teachers. I really need to see a lot more of where this 250 is generated from and how we're transitioning.
So the current management of STEP is $525,000 to include the rent, the lease for the building. So what it costs us to run STEP currently with administrator, building, et cetera, is very, very costly. And we will not want to get that money next year from the state. The state is giving us $400,000 this year, but we're not going to get $525,000. We are working with some other school districts at this particular time and with EastCon to see how we can have not only a one school program for STEP, so a program that includes more than Windham Public School, and that will reduce the cost of STEP for Windham Public School. So instead of being Windham Public School, the only school served by that program, it will be some other surrounding school district also. So in conversation with EastCon and with those other school districts that will be served by that program, we are estimating, is projected, that we can reduce that cost.
So I guess by translation, that means so we are going to be reducing staff, an administrator and teachers that are currently are
well, the
working
program
at
was
STEP.
still but we will not be the only one paying into the program. So it will not cost us the amount of money that we're paying now because other people will be paying for that program. So we expect that we could pay that our contribution will be $250,000.
Okay, so you expect the steps to continue at the building with the staff that we have.
It may not.
But it may become an EastCon type regional
It may
program.
not continue that building. That building is very, very expensive. It's $100,000 for that building. So it may not continue that building. The program will continue. But it may be a different configuration of that program that will include not only Windham Public School, that would include other school districts that are in the program, and it could include that Windham Public School is not the lead. It could be another school district the lead. It could be EastCon the lead. So we're in that conversation. We have not finalized that. What we do know is based on the needs of other school districts in the area, based on the needs of the region, we don't have to take on this project by ourselves. If we go into this project with other school districts, we reduce the cost to Windham Public School.
I understand because that was my point last August when we did this, and I said we didn't have to take on the program. We could have just gone out. But I'm still confused. Are we going to be replacing our staff, reducing the staff?
It will be a reduction. It will be a reduction, right? Because we will not need all that staff because it will be staff coming from other areas.
I didn't see that
also.
reflected in your projected reduction. That's why I'm asking where what's happening.
Well, we
to the
didn't
staff.
reflect the reduction. We reflect the reduction in money. We're going from 525 to 250.
But you're saying the configuration of how is yet to be worked out?
It's to be worked out.
Dr.
So-
Garcia, and currently, in this year, fiscal year 18-19, it's sitting under the state grants.
Right.
So it's not on our general funds,
It's not in our general funds, no.
the 400,000.
But next year it will be in our general funds.
And how will that affect our ECS money? Because one of the big things we had is that we're getting.
We got an
400,000.
additional alliance money
Yeah, for that.
per the state. Kathy Dempsey
This year.
assured us, this year we got
I'm talking about your
400,000.
proposed program for next year. How will that affect
Well,
our
alliance is
ECS?
being increased again.
So this year they're giving it through us through Alliance money, so it doesn't go through the town. But next year, I do not expect that it will be in Alliance money. I think it will be in the regular ECS.
So it'll go to whatever agency is running the program.
Exactly. Oh, it will come to the district, and we have to get that money through the town.
That'll increase tuition.
Right.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Jaime?
Yeah, I was wondering, I was looking, maybe it's there somewhere, how much do we spend in legal services, and how do we project for those legal services when we have these litigations and we lose? Where do we grab the money from?
So
Because
Chris,
we
could
end
you-
up paying
Rita,
for
could you look it up? I don't have this.
Yeah,
right now.
no, it's 150,000. It's under contract services in central office, but it's 150,000. And typically, what we'll do is we'll look at some years it's higher, some years it's lower. I look at the average of about 3 or 4 years, and that continues to be the average that we pay Shipman and Goodman mostly. Other types of legal expenditures, depending, like say workman's comp, if we have legal expenditures there, then that goes through that fund.
Do they handle that too?
Shipman and Goodman, not normally.
no.
That's somewhere else.
No, because that would be a conflict. But they, if it's a workman's comp litigation, the lawyer is paid for out of the money that we put into the workman's compensation fund, the legal expenses for that type of litigation. Other types of litigation happen through our insurance policies, where, if it's a claim like a general insurance claim, and we need a lawyer, then that's paid for out of the premium. So
So I would like to say that the money that you see in legal services, litigation is a minimum part of that. I want you to know that we have about nine bargaining units. We have 9 bargaining units, and so thinking about negotiation of those bargaining units, that's where the majority of our expenses come. We have 9 bargaining units.
So you say that we've spent about $150,000 average a year? That's for the total expenses in legal service.
on average,
On
it would
average.
last
On
4 to
average,
5
yeah,
years.
I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Is it possible to get the number that we spent last year? The actual?
The actual from the last fiscal year?
Last fiscal year, the one that's closed. I know we can't get this year's. And maybe a year-to-date for this year?
Yes.
Thank you.
Who's taking that question? Who took that question?
Neil's typing, Mr. Pabone's typing away over there frantically.
Actual.
Dr. Gomez, are you done?
Yes.
May I go now?
Yes, sure.
I have a couple of questions. One, in the thing that came out to the board last week, $44,000 for a part-time German teacher. How did we come upon German?
Okay, so very, very simple. There always been a desire at the high school to expand languages, to expand foreign languages, number one. We have a group of students that went to Germany last year, and they talk about it. The high school is a STEAM high school, meaning it's going to have STEM and it's going to have arts and music and languages. So in conversation with students, as I meet with students, there was a desire, can we expand to German? So I made the decision that it's something that I think I would like to support, because I think foreign languages are very important. Now, it's a very lofty goal because, number one, getting a German teacher is very, very difficult. Chris volunteered that he would get certified to teach German.
Half of everything else?
I do think that once we start teaching German, we will get students that will be interested from the middle school as they move up to learn German. I think the culture and the language is very, very unique. And I will say that we have Spanish. We have up to French 3. Years ago, we didn't have French. We have French 3, and when we started French, we started with one class, about only 8 students in French. And now we have up to French 3. So it's an opportunity to give students to learn German. I speak the language not as good as fluent as
We have conversations.
we have conversation in German, but I think it's another opportunity for our students.
I'm just wondering why we wouldn't pick something like Latin, because we're considering one of our pathways to be a health services, and that's the basis for a lot of the medical terminology and stuff like that. So I'm just curious why Latin wouldn't be an option over German.
Yeah,
and while
well-
Andrew had a great time in Germany, I'm not sure he ever would have signed up to take German.
Okay, so I will be another one supporting Latin. I studied Latin in high school. I will support any languages that we want to offer at the high school. You'll have my support because of the importance of languages, not only academically but also cognitively. However, the decision was made based on conversation with students, and I think based on their recent experience going to Germany and visiting. And there are some students that would like to return to Germany, but Latin is one that we can put on the list for another year to put it. No, again, obtaining a Latin teacher is also very difficult.
Another thing was retainer for architect. I don't think that that's an additional request, because up until, and we spelled additional wrong, by the way, up until this year we've paid $2,000 a month, so it's $24,000 to Fryer to help out with school planning and design and facilitating the referendum and stuff like that. So it's not really an additional expense. It's something that's been included.
So we did put an additional. I tell you why we put an additional request, because we want to make sure that there was some added responsibility to whoever the board select as the architect. Number one, for example, looking at the K through 8 configuration, that study alone could cost us more than that. So in order to make it more effective, instead of paying $50,000 to have something like that, when we wrote the RFQ, we put that under the responsibility of whoever the consultant is. So that's why we increased that retainer fee.
Something else I noticed is that looking at Sweeney's utilities, I don't know why this jumped out at me, but last year it was $54,000. The year before, 17-18, it was $54,000.
What page, please?
I'm looking at last year's budget book, which is page 70, but on this year's budget book, it's page 59.
Thank you.
On last year's budget book, it was $54,000, and then it drops down to $6,300. And I questioned it then, and somebody was supposed to get back to me, and I didn't get a response. This year it goes to, this year it's on page 59. From 6,300 to 19,000.
59.
Like, do we have every other year kids are leaving the lights on? Are we flushing the toilets more?
Or we're not turning the lights
Not
on?
turning the lights on? I'm not sure how this works.
Yes, we're not turning the lights on. We're
Excellent.
not using any heat out there.
Excellent.
No, actually, it's over 200,000 annually. But this is Sweeney. Oh, this is Sweeney. Okay,
Okay, so
Sweeney.
54 to
I was
6,300,
thinking of Barrows.
back up to 19.
Um,
I'm not.
Yes, we
totally
incorrectly budgeted that. We thought we would get more savings out of the cogen that
Okay.
we had at the Windham middle school,
Okay.
where we had the solar array and then the cogen hooked up with Sweeney, but those savings were much smaller than we expected. So I looked at the actual numbers for last year, which was the first year that we had actual numbers with the cogen, and I moved it back up to where it should be.
Actually, we have not seen the saving with the cogen, not even at Barrows.
it's very hard to decide what we need for this year if we can't see actuals from some year. Even if it's from the previous year, we're not seeing actuals. And when I look at like last year's budget book versus this year, numbers for under, like on page 45, if everybody wants to go there, which is NACHOG. Numbers for certified personnel. Last year it says 1,847,642, but this year for NACHOG for 18-19 it says 1,046,400. Like there's discrepancies all over the place, and I don't know what's actuals and what's projected and what's maybe we spent this. I don't know how to say yes, we're going to spend more on this if I can't see any kind of actual.
Well, let me just give you an idea of our procedure this year, which is different than it has been in previous years, is that instead of just taking the budget from the previous year for non-salary expenses, we actually looked over 3 years. We looked at 17-18 actuals, 18-19 budget, and then 19-20. And what we did is, if they didn't spend their budget last year or this year, then we looked at what did they actually spend in all these accounts. So we trued up the 19-20 to their actual spending, because for years people have just been pushing forward their budgets year after year after year, whether they've spent them or not. And so we actually looked at their true spending for the non-salary accounts, And so every school, we decided, and we talked with the people, we said, look, you haven't been spending that budget. Do you need that budget? Or you need more money than you've actually budgeted. Increase the budget. So we went, in each case, we went and looked at their actual 17-18 spending. For salary expenses, everything is driven off our payroll system. So who's getting paid? What position control number do they have? Okay, they're in this program. We have this, the principal validate with us that that person is there, that that person is being paid, and that's how we go through. So the salaries are based on actual, and our new operating expenses are based on actual. That's completely different than in the past, where we just basically pushed the budget forward into another year. So we really tried to do as best we could the actuals. We don't have the actuals, the 17-18 actuals here, but if you want to have those, we could include them for the next book if you want them.
I do believe that the salary numbers are very exact because now we're using Munis, that we didn't have Munis before. And I think Munis does give us the opportunity for Rita and Geraldine to really look at, now we do have position control. We didn't have that before.
In most buildings, that's all that changes. If I go down last year's NatJog budget and this year's NatJog budget, the only thing that changes is benefits and personnel. And I don't understand why some of them, and I understand that we had 3 referendums or 4 referendums or whatever it was. Referendums start to blur at this point in my career on the Board of Ed, but I understand that those things change and benefits go down as personnel goes down, et cetera. But those are the only things that seem to be changing from last year's budget book that we were given in, this is dated February or March. February 28th, 2018, and this year. So if I go down other instructions purchase, instructional supplies, utilities, those all pretty much stay the same from book to book, but the salaries are changing, and I'm not understanding if those are actuals, then maybe we need actuals on everything to be able to understand what we're budgeting from year to year.
So you're hearing Mrs.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only actuals, as I said, is we have 17-18 actuals, so we could put that in the book. I don't know if that would answer more questions or create more questions because programs changed from 2 years ago. So having actuals from 17-18 may or may not be helpful because I think programmatic needs change over 2 years.
Well, I mean, just make notes on the bottom of that page, like programmatic need, you know, we had 3 kindergartens instead of 4 in this cohort or something like that.
I mean,
You
again,
can make a
it's
note
not been
on.
done before, but we can do it.
It's just
If
hard
that's
to
your,
compare to,
if that's,
what I'm looking at is what we proposed February of last year, and it was cut 2 or 3 times before it became a final document. And somewhere along the line, you 2 or you 3 or 4, however many, have to look and say, okay, well, we have $300,000 less or whatever the number was. This is where we've got to start making the cuts from.
Yeah, so
and I know that we have a freeze now, which, you know, is also affecting all of that, but something of some kind of actuals on what we've spent some year, that way we have something to compare it to. Because otherwise we just keep pushing the numbers up,
the
like you said.
17-18, and we have done our best not to just push budget forward, but to push actuals forward. So, and that's a combination of Munis and the position control in the payroll system, and looking at 17-18 actual expenses versus their 18-19 budget, which may be overstated, it may be understated.
I just want to follow. Are you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for now.
I just want to follow up on this line. I'm looking at page 45
Okay.
for this year's budget
Okay.
book, in this year's budget book. I'm not looking at last year's. I'm looking at this year's. If I understand what you were explaining just a minute or two ago about truing up, those were your words, I think, truing up the actual staffing costs with actual positions in each building, whether or not they were filled, at what salary they are at, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to just go off that point, Lynn. So we use actual salaries this year for teachers versus 60,540 average across the district. So in some cases, we were paying less than average in a certain place, and you'll see the salaries increase to their true amount, or they had salaries above the average, and that would drive some of the increases and decreases.
That explains some of it much better.
So that can I just finish? So that in the NatJog fiscal year 2018-19 versus NatJog fiscal year 2019-20, those certified personnel costs are, I'm looking at page 45, the one that Tracy was working off of. Those are the sort of trued up personnel costs.
Yes.
Yes. At this
Exactly.
point. And so the change in the third column of 109,748,000 is what you think the increase is in certified personnel costs between last year and
Last year's average budgeted staff at 60,240.
and this year's proposal.
And this year's actual salaries up and down from that.
Right. But the other items in the far right column, which is the change between 2018-19 and 2019-20, there actually are changes that are in this, whether they're pluses or minuses, depending on whether or not
Right,
they're
and
in
that's
parentheses or
it's
not.
a perfect example, Lynn, of where we went in and didn't tie it to the budget from the previous year, because normally what you would have seen is 15,900 in one column and 15,900 in the next column with no changes, and nobody
Right.
would ask any questions
And this-
because it was the same number.
This is what, I think when we asked for more detail, this is helpful to see these line item changes.
So this is perfectly a case where, look, we didn't budget enough for Kelly Services. Look, the actual expenditure said 60,000 per year. We only had 40 in the budget. We needed to put 20 more in there. So I trued it up to 60. But, I looked at some of the other accounts and they weren't required at that level. So we funded that increase through the reduction in other accounts.
So there's a lot more detail in here than, we've been customarily seen. I would just take it a next step next time and have like you do for the Board of Finance or the town council budgets, where at the bottom of the page there's a little bit of narrative if there's a significant change. I don't think it has to be for everything, but some explanation for why there was a significant change in some of these line items, like you do with the Board of Finance and town budgets. It's sort of just basically describing
So we
what the
can
big
put,
changes are.
footnotes to that.
Well, yeah, it's like a footnote. So for those of us who are reading this, we may not even need to ask you a question about it, because we could read the narrative and it would say this.
That's a good suggestion.
It's
Very good suggestion.
it's just the way we do it on the other boards, and I think it's very helpful. Thank you. Anybody else? Mark, and then Mary.
Okay. Speaking of footnotes, if we can go to page 57 for a second. Our non-certified staff jumped by 241,000, and our benefits for jumped by 276,000. That's a lot of chewing.
That's true. Mark, you pointed out a very good
lot of truant.
interesting. So what happened there is the Titans staff moved, the Titans program moved from North Windham over to Sweeney. And that shift is represented there.
If I look at North Windham, I'll see 271,000.
I doubt. I don't know that for
We need
sure.
There's a reduction
But,
in staffing at North Windham because the program moves to Sweeney.
But again, that's a case where a footnote would have
Yeah.
done wonders.
Would have killed that one, yes.
Would have really helped.
While
I know
you're
it's more
dancing, I'll
work.
look at Sweeney's or North Wyndham's numbers and see if it works.
Sweeney staffing did go down. That program brought, I don't know how many teachers over with them. North Windham to Sweeney.
It's 58 and 52 pages.
52 is the page?
Yeah, for North Windham.
Mark, did you have more questions before we go to Mary?
Yeah, you see a reduction in staff there. So I don't know how many people it was. It was some teachers and some other paraprofessional people, I think.
So you see the change in North Windham.
Yeah, you do.
8 paras, I guess. And
But Mark's question was then, would you see that exact same number reflected in the
not
Sweeney?
necessarily.
Not necessarily, but because there might be other changes.
But it would
at
be like
Sweeney.
a big
Roughly.
part of a change.
Right.
Our benefits only went down 11,635.
That cannot be. That have to be more than that.
Right. Yep. That's right there. Benefits were down 28,000.
A reduction.
Right, but they went up
What up? 200.
276,000 at the other.
You have to look at those numbers, Chris. You have to look at that number.
So-
It just doesn't make mathematical sense, that's all.
Yeah.
Right, so one of the requests that we'd like to get another look at are those benefit costs between the two schools, North Windham and Sweeney, right?
And
Okay,
even the-
Mary had her hand up next. Mary?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is regarding page 88. I'm looking at the high school, and it looks like we're losing a guidance counselor, or it's going from 130,000 this year to 97, or some part-time person.
We're not losing a guidance counselor at the high school. I pointed that out to Mr. Johnson today. We are not losing. The high school has 2 guidance counselor there. We are not losing. We have not decreased the guidance
I think that
What's
might be a
the
reflection
reduction?
of the average to the actual salaries.
Well,
Maybe a partial head too. We'll have to look into that.
We'd like clarification on that. Is that what
Right.
you're saying, Mary?
yes, and also because the middle school on page 80 has, it does have a reduction from this year to this year to next year, but it's still higher than what the high school has, which puzzles me.
The high school, the middle school have 3 guidance counselors.
Okay. Well,
Middle school
I
has
don't.
2.
I
Yeah, I
just
think
wonder if we have enough.
that's just basically a change between the 60,340 versus what they're actually making. So it looks like those guidance counselors were lower than the average teacher salary we had in the previous year. But I'll check that for you to make
Okay.
sure.
Well, there's a guidance counselor that left. That was a very, very high salary. And the new guidance counselor that came into the middle school.
Smalley or?
Don't call names.
Oh.
But the new guidance counselor that came in is Joseph, first-year graduate from college.
Okay, but we'll
Okay.
get more clarification on that. And Mary, did you have other questions?
Just a couple others. It also appears that on page 81, the middle school administrator principal's office is much higher than, say, the high school. I don't know if that's due to student numbers or what. And although the non-certified, I'm not sure, what does non-certified category 112 principal office for the high school, what would
Secretarial
that mean?
staff.
Okay. So the high
Look
school
into
has
that
a
for you.
smaller principal office.
Why do we
The
have
high school should have the same size
more
principals.
administrative
They have a principal and 2
salaries
vice
at the middle
principals,
school?
and the middle school has a principal and 2 deans.
High school have the same administrative staff, but the high school have more secretarial staff than the middle school.
But why does the middle school have such a,
Administrator salaries.
$200,000 more?
Chris, could you explain that?
I have to look into it. I
Okay,
can't tell you
so-
offhand.
So we need clarification on the discrepancies between the administrative costs, administrator costs in the high school and the middle school.
Yes. And then I had, I just a comment also that the music budget at the high school is lower than the middle school. And I would say, the idea that student demand for German is going to drive that choice, and I don't know how that was gathered. But having a part-time band teacher at the high school has been devastating to the music program that the town also has been diligent in supporting. And, I have made that comment before as a parent that, so it's a 50% band teacher at the high school, 50% at the middle school, which already has a bigger music budget. And we lose our music teacher at the high school because if the middle school doesn't want it. And I would think that it might be a good idea to really, you said you are the great supporter of arts and music, which we would really like in this district. And I really feel that the high school has been suffering.
So there are a couple of things to answer to that. I think eventually we will see a district where music is at the top of the list because we're starting from the bottom. We're starting from the elementary school, and we want to move that to the middle school. And we're already talking to the middle school on how they can change their schedule to make sure they support students when they come to the middle school for music. I think one of the biggest issues at the high school is that there are so many other opportunities for AP, EC courses, and then students leave those elective as band the second. Everything is in context. So right now what we're doing is we hire a theater teacher at the middle school. With the theater teacher at the middle school, that one will be free up the opportunity for music at the high school. So those 2 principals are having the conversation. I listened to your request before. I support that. But we just hired a theater teacher at the middle school. And so that elective now. Some of those music students are going to theater. And so that will free up the opportunity for the high school, because it's the same, it's one position. It does 0.5 and 0.5, so that could move to the high school as a full-time position. We just need to get more students in band, and that's something that we need to make sure.
Well, just to follow up, if I may, to suggest that we're supporting music in elementary school, which is wonderful, when I'm questioning the decline at the high school, which isn't all the students' desire, is to say that those students' education is somehow being pushed aside. And 4 years is a lifetime it's the entire high school career of a student. And they may be happy about elementary school, but I think that it's a disservice to those students that 10 years from now there will be a program in the high school, if there is one. So.
Well, like I said, Dr. Galucci, we support it. We want students to be in the program. We're talking to the guidance counselor and say, what is the issue? Why kids are not signing up? Take in consideration that at the high school, kids, the elective are students' requests. The mandatory courses are ELA, math and science, whatever they need to graduate. And so arts and music and foreign language have to be an interest on the part of the students, but also have to be an effort of the administration or the guidance counselor to say, okay, here you're coming from the middle school, what can we do to support you? How can the schedule look differently to support students that want to continue with music? So we're having those conversations. It's not the fix like we can fix it today, but we're having a conversation with the current administration and say, okay, how many kids are coming from the middle school that are in band at the middle school? We don't want 80 to come and then only 5 or 10 of them end up in band. So what can we do to do that? So I putting a lot of what was said effort on the administration, and those conversations are taking place.
Right. We have had 4 music teachers in 5 years for band. And I had one other question regarding one of your scenarios, which says a reduction due to course requests at the high school. And then your answer said that they may not need an English teacher. Again, I'm very troubled to hear that, and I don't know. We have some flexible numbers at the high school. We have more students than we projected a year or so ago. And already saying an English teacher, and again, that's a reduction in a teacher.
So let me go back to the process, Dr. Galucci. And the process is not only Dr. Garcia making the decision, or Dr. Jumberg, or Mr. Johnson. It's a collective process. So the principals come to us and present what they need. As I said to you in my response to you, the principal has informed me that there will not be maybe a need for an English teacher. So I am giving you the information that the school has given to me. I'm sure I would go back to and say to the principal, have you finished your numbers? Have you finished your number? How does that look for class size? So I am putting that in context, and I'm being very transparent with you, giving you that information. My job now as superintendent is, once the principal finishes the schedule, that she'll be working on the schedule the whole week of the 23rd of February, they're working all of them, is to go back and say, okay, how does that look? How does your classes look? Because usually what happens is that the lower level classes, so the 9th grade English, will look much larger than 11th grade English. And so the AP English may only have 8 or 9 or 10, but the larger classes would be at the 9th grade level. So this process is still in process. I have to wait for the principal. And as I said before, it is a process where many people are involved. I have to listen to what the principals tell me. I let them make the argument. I know where we want to go with our vision for the district. And so if music is something that's important to us and it's part of our tool, then I have to say, is this a good decision or this is not a good decision? So I think we want to respect that process. I respect what the principals bring to me. My job now is, when they bring it to me, ask the question and see what they bring it to me, support where we want to go. I support a band teacher at the high school, I definitely, but I think it would be very irresponsible if I only have a band teacher for 10 students. Fiscally is not responsible. So my job to say to the high school is, can we get more students in band? Because I don't think the board would approve that we have a band teacher for 10 students. So as we know that band is important, is how do we get more students in band? That's what we need to do in order to be able to support that position.
Jaime?
I just want some clarification. As we went from scenarios to scenarios last week, from the first one, which we had like benefits to millions, and then we went into the scenario 5. With now it turned into insurance adjustment and so forth. Then I just want to know, clarify what do benefits really encompass in this case? What are they, and what do they cover any insurances, or is only pensions, or what specifically?
Right. So pensions include
No benefits.
personnel.
I want to know what
Personnel benefits include health and life, health insurance,
health insurance.
health, RX, and dental, as well as life, unemployment, workers' comp, tuition reimbursements, and FICA Medicare is a big one. So that's what it includes.
And the breakdown.
And unfortunately, this year we had to increase our FICA Medicare because we haven't been budgeting sufficiently for it. We've been budgeting $750,000, but it's much closer to $1 million. So we went up this year. That's one of the drivers of personnel benefits, is not only health benefits, but it's also that we needed to adjust FICA Medicare up to its actual expense.
Dr. Gomez, the total of that for health insurance.
Dr. Garcia, use your microphone,
Oh,
please.
thank you. The total for that for health insurance, the breakdown, the total is $1,016,476. The breakdown is $726,476 for health insurance, life insurance $15,000, and Medicare FICA
Is
$375,000.
it here?
Yes.
Is it in this
Yes,
budget?
yes, it's in the challenges section.
No, it's not in the
Oh,
book broken
it's-
out
it's
like
in the
that.
presentation.
It's rolled up.
So if
Yeah.
Janet didn't send the presentation,
It's
we'll
in
send
the
you the
presentation,
presentation.
but
You had in your presentation,
Could we get a copy of
You will
that?
get a copy of the presentation.
and also,
Thank you.
I don't know if everybody else has the same problem, but I can't see from here to there.
Okay, Dr. Gomez,
Yeah.
we make sure you get big letters.
And, yeah, bigger letters, because as you speak, we can't follow. And if we don't have
We'll
them
make
here,
sure. Promise you will get
can
a big
follow.
report with big letters.
Okay.
well,
No,
that I can see.
that's, you can see that, but you can't see it.
Dr.
Yeah.
Gomez.
Yeah. Any more questions, Jaime?
No, thank you.
Okay. I was just informed that a traveler who just came into town has said that the roads are getting to be very slippery. So I might ask the boards to, if we could finish the budget questions for tonight. We're not making any decisions tonight. And get a report on where we are with the ed specs, but push that off to discussion next week, just so that the staff who have some of whom have a long way to travel, can do that as safely as possible. So I'm not suggesting we break it off now, but I'm just making people aware of that.
And I'm sure if you would like to, they could email you their question on the expect tomorrow, and I'd be happy.
Well, yeah, let's just hold on that for a second. Tracy had some questions.
A couple things. On page 85 of the budget book, it has administrator salaries at $266,052 for 1920. But if you turn the page to 86, it has certified personnel, which is different, I understand that, at negative 301 and 303,000. Are we losing like a wing of the high school? If you look at the top of page 86,
86.
certified personnel, which is different. The first part of my question was following what Mary said. 301,303 negative.
Right. So every year we build in a certain amount of attrition, turnover, and efficiencies. And I can't specifically say which lines we're going to get them from, but typically each year we budget a certain amount for turnover, attrition, and you can see we're actually reducing that amount by 76,000. So we're going to say...
So wait, the parentheses needs to come off and go over to the changed column, yes?
No, the parentheses are correct. What I'm saying is we don't know where exactly the efficiencies, the attrition, the open positions that we don't fill, we budget those each year as a savings because we actually get them. So what I'm saying is we just need less of them than in the previous year. We're reducing the amount of turnover and efficiencies that we have built into the high school budget. we build in, when you see efficiencies, we don't know specifically what line item we're going to get them from. So we say it's going to be at a high level.
All right, I don't know if you're looking at the same copy I am. Line 100, certified personnel.
Yes, that
I
is
have
the-
301 with parentheses around it.
Right. Every year what I'm saying is for the last 4 or 5 years, we budget turnover.
So shouldn't that be termed expected
Efficiencies / open positions, vacancies, we budget that piece.
You're talking about on page 85? Is it
Page
number-
86, at the very
top of
top.
86.
Right.
Okay, got it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
You
also
see, it's
says
not changing
elementary
from
ed,
year
but-
to year, and it hasn't changed from 17, 18 either. Every year we budget turnover at the high school and middle school to account for the fact we have open positions that aren't filled, vacancies, and also efficiencies that we get through our programs, which I can't drill down specifically, but I know I have to take them into account because we have them in our scenarios.
So it's 301,303 less than?
No, that's just when we roll everything up. It's part of the
The total number in the school?
certified number.
The total number in the school.
Total number, it's embedded in there.
But it makes
Turnover is embedded in your final certified numbers. You have to put it someplace.
78,000 savings.
I'm just, this is a cost center that doesn't really hold any people because the high school and the middle school all have their expenditures in programs versus the elementary school, which have regular education expenditures. So this is an area where I put the turnover factors and the efficiencies.
For all the
Are you
schools?
suggesting that we're going to hire newer teachers at a lower salary, and that's the,
No. When we have efficiencies, either in our scenarios as like turnover or vacancies, we have staff turnover, $200,000. Every year we have staff turnover. I have to put it into a line. Turnover and efficiencies from Kronos, for instance. Where do I put that? I have to put it into a specific spot. So typically, I use the middle school and the high school to hold that line, the turnover line, because we have turnover, vacancies, and also efficiencies. All those three factors are budgeted as a negative number because we don't know specifically, is it going to come from history? Is it going to come from English? Is it going to be a para? Where is that going to come from? So,
I think I understand, but I'm not.
Yeah.
yeah,
It
maybe
seems
I'm not
wonky.
explaining
It's,
it well.
it's just not,
Maybe a footnote.
yeah, but also calling it something like what it really is.
Yeah,
Because it
when
just
I look
says
at where
certified
I
personnel.
think
It
the
looks like
salary
you're
number should be there.
cutting
All of it.
that amount of certified personnel, that's all.
Okay, I'll put a footnote there. That would explain it.
I have,
Tracy,
Quick ones if I
yeah,
may.
and then Mike.
world languages, we were going to add a German part-time for $1,905. That was
44,000.
Okay, there's no increase in that line there. I know it's on the explanation that you emailed us separately, but there's no increase on world language there.
Chris, you need to increase that because I did put it in the budget.
So, Chris, you should have, known that ahead of time.
We discussed that part-time German teacher.
Yes.
And then health services on page 88, line 112, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blurbs down. That's not the right word for it, but decreased by 77,882. Health services, did we cut a position in health
Where is
services?
that?
Page 88.
We told Mr.
Oh,
No, we did not decrease any health services.
89?
88, health services. The
112.
fifth column, set of columns down.
Column?
Only 76,000.
I'm going to have to look into that piece.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it
I
went
think
down
it might be a
77,000.
it might be a classification issue between phys ed and health, because sometimes there are two different codes.
Well, phys ed is under health instruction, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So health services would have to be something medical?
Health
That's right.
services
It's Miguel.
It's nursing,
Miguel.
isn't it?
Nursing is Miguel.
It's nursing.
His nursing is Miguel.
So we're getting rid of a nurse?
I have to look into that one for you.
Okay, could you
So
please?
clarify health services,
Can't tell you off.
Is that paid?
number
page 88?
112
Page
on
88.
page 88.
5 columns down.
Okay.
Services 112.
5 roles, you
We're
mean?
centralizing them.
Five
That's
blurbs.
that's what it is.
Well,
We're
112.
centralizing the
You
nurses.
may have a different one.
The LPNs, we're centralizing them because they're not specific to some of the locations.
Okay.
100%. So we took them into the central office, and they're sent out to where they need to go, right?
Okay. Tracy, any more questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, Mike?
Can I compare that? Do we have the same one?
Yeah,
My-
it's right here.
I guess mine was
Now that I'm looking at
kind of
this. Sorry.
I'm trying to get
clarified to
questions.
the best it's going to be tonight, and it was on the same thing on that 301,000 and the 78. It's almost $380,000 worth of. It looked to be like classroom cuts, but if that's going to be,
We're going to get clarification
that's
on
what
that.
declared. So it's
Yeah.
no use going into that again.
I just want to once again say we have not cut one classroom position,
Yeah, and
not one, at any level.
Well, there's just, now that we're getting a chance to look at the book this way, people are going to have questions. I think we have a pretty good list of things that people want clarifications on, and some things.
Send us more.
And if you have more, send them more. Any more questions from the board tonight?
I think we
Jaime?
should really,
Go
it's
ahead.
dangerous out there.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I think
wrapping.
so. I mean,
Yeah,
Some people have to travel safety before.
right. So, yes, Mary?
well, I just want to say the world languages at Barrows, it looks like a reduction from 130,000 to 52,000 on page 70. I mean, either someone, is that a position cut? Page 70, world
Third
language
section down.
instruction.
We'll
We'll have to look into that.
get
Okay.
clarification on that.
It's cut.
I took a,
Again, some footnotes might be helpful.
That-
I
Thank you.
took a whole list of things, and if, I'll make sure we true up. Okay.
Another book like this.
So these clarifications will be sent to us, I'm assuming, in writing before the next meeting? Before the next meeting.
Yeah, by Friday.
And if you have other questions, please send them along. And I just want, since we're going to wrap up a little earlier and not really get into the ed specs, I wanted Dr. Garcia just to share with everybody where we are in the process. I think there's a meeting on Friday, so go
Yes.
ahead.
We have another meeting with the team on Friday and with Collier on Friday to go back and make some final adjustment to the packet that was given to you and to include the additional specification that are needed. The last time I gave you there are some areas that were missing, like food services, et cetera. So we're meeting on Tuesday with Collier to go over those and some other questions that came up. So we should be able to get you something, I believe, by Monday.
And then we'll have a full discussion next week at the board meeting about it, because we would like to be in a position to either approve or approve shortly after that. One other thing I meant to report to you all when it comes to the budget. In some discussion with the Board of Finance, there is some talk about the Board of Finance having a third party do a little audit on the cost of the health plan for the Board of Ed and for the town, and the whole issue of how much and the reserves, and get some answers to some clear answers to our questions. So they're having a special meeting next Monday at 6 p.m. at Town Hall, and this will be one of the items for discussion there. Personally, as the chair of this board, I think that's a great idea, because then we can get some better information for us as we move forward with the Board of Finance to finalize the budget as it relates to health benefits. And if there are issues around the reserves, it gives us real hard answers, real data. And then we can, work with the town together on solving that issue. So I just wanted to let you know that that's in discussion, and that may affect what the final budget looks like. But it is something that I think we probably won't get answers to in time for us before we have to pass things off to the Board of Finance. But I think it does sort of free us up a little bit to think about what the actual costs are that we should be budgeting on for the health plan, and any issues around reserves or practices moving forward we might need to resolve with the town. Any questions on that? But I didn't want you all to be surprised if you heard about that. But that's being discussed on Monday night. If there's not anything else, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:30. I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Mike? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Dr. Youngberg, Dr. Garcia, can we